people seem to like the Izzy stories, and I think they're probably quite helpful, and I'm sure she won't mind in time. But trying to get her to internalize ambitions and goals is a challenge. Now, it's not a challenge I think is particular to her. I mean, I think it's just a challenge that is being human, right? And so, we want her to do stuff, practice her swimming, practice her skating, gymnastics, the stuff that she likes to do it, but she just doesn't like to practice that much. So take her swimming. She's like, well, let's just play. I don't want to practice. And I haven't been pushing her too hard with that stuff. But stuff like, so reading, right? So, she's getting quite good at reading, but she doesn't really like to practice, which of course I can understand. In anything that you try to do, there's sort of a hump. There's a hill you've got to get over. It's uphill, and then it's downhill after that, which I guess is not the best metaphor, but it gets easier, sort of what I'm saying. So I'm trying to get her to internalize the goals, because it's kind of become a game of cat and mouse, right? Like she needs to do her reading, but she's like, oh, later, or it just becomes something she's sort of avoidant about. And it becomes a hassle. And it gets boring, chasing her around. Oh, let's do our reading and all. And yes, I don't like the idea of just waiting until she's ready. I mean, there's an unschooling thing which says you wait until the kid's ready and so on. But physiologically, kids are sort of primed around 5 or 6 to be really good at learning reading, right? The same way that sort of between 2 and 4, they're really good at learning language. If you miss that window, it can be challenging later on. And let's say that she only develops an interest in reading when she's 10 or 11. Well, I was reading when I was 4 or 5, and by then I had 5 years or so of experience reading, and you just can't catch that stuff up. So I'm focusing on her reading. Plus, as an only child, she's going to have to get used to amusing herself to some degree, and reading is a great way to do that. So anyway, so we talked about it this morning, and I was sort of, we made it a lot of fun, and we had a great conversation about it. I said, do you like being bossy? Yeah, I like being bossy. Hey, who doesn't? And I said, and I took a banana and I said, this is you and reading. And I say, let's do some reading. And I push the banana and then it stops. Let's do some reading. I push the banana and it stops. Then I grab the banana and put it back at the beginning, right? And this is you with swimming. Let's practice some swimming. No, let's practice, and getting this, like I said, the banana doesn't move. It only moves when it's pushed. And I said, and that's kind of where you are with a lot of things. You will do stuff if you're pushed, and then you try to figure out ways to avoid it. And it's not like we got a lot of demands or very bossy or anything like that. And I said, let me tell you something. If you can take these things that we want you to do, and we've explained why, I think there's good reasons. If you can take these things and you can put them in your heart rather than have them something that people are telling you to do from outside, then you can be bossy in your life. You can be a boss. I said, nobody calls me up and says, Steph, you got to do a show or I'm not paying you. And I guess if I didn't do shows for long enough, well, I'd probably still make money. I mean, I know I would, because there's 3,000 shows out there already, so people would still be plowing. So, I mean, I could make money for the rest of my life without doing another show. But I like doing the shows. I like learning about stuff. I like inflicting passive-aggressive computer nerd revenge on oversized people by doing the truth about the NFL Super Bowl. Now available at youtube.com/freedomain radio. I like all of that stuff. And I said, so I have what I want to do and my love of learning in my heart, and that means I don't have a boss. I don't have someone telling me what to do, because I have all of this stuff in my heart. And I grabbed it, and so I said, let's scoop up your learning. Now, if you put it in your heart, you can run. You won't have someone telling you what to do your whole life. So why do we want you to learn how to swim? So, you can go swimming with fishies. So if we're on vacation somewhere and there are dolphins, you go swimming with dolphins. It's because we want you to have fun. I mean, swimming was a big part of my teenage years for sure. I mean, I was on a swim team and a water polo team and all that. So we talked about all the things that she's resistant to doing, and said if you scoop them up and put them into your heart, and we tickled while we were doing it, and then you're in charge. So you can come and say, Daddy, I'd like to learn how to read. Now, even if you don't want to in the moment, that's how you end up not being told what to do your whole life, is if you internalize, if you put things in your heart that need to get done. But if you just wait for other people to tell you what to do, you will always have people who will tell you what to do. It was a really great conversation. I just sort of wanted to share it. Well, it'll probably take a couple of tries, but I think she does really kind of get the idea. So it's just a good lesson if you've got kids. And, I think, we all start off pretty inert, but trying to get Isabella to internalize the values that will give her real freedom. The real freedom in this life is the internalization of goals. That's real freedom. And that freedom is available to you to some degree, regardless of where you live, at least in the West. The internalization of goals. What do you want to get done in your life? Or are you passive, drifting your time away on movies and TV and video games, and then resentfully doing whatever people tell you needs to be done? Then you will forever remain a kind of slave. Relative to the freedom of a self-directed life, even being an employee is a kind of slavery. Internal, metaphorical, but nonetheless, it is a kind of slavery. Mike, you're in a situation now where almost nobody tells you what to do. How's that?
Much better than being a slave, I will say.
How was that transition for you? Because you went from having scheduled work and unionized work and bosses and to the terror of being your own boss. Because being your own boss, everyone thinks is great. It took a while for me. My own boss, kind of an asshole. Inside could be kind of bossy and domineering. It took a while to sort of measure that out. But how was that transition for you?
Well, very different at first. It was definitely something that took a bit of getting used to. But once I kind of got in the swing of things and realized that, hey, no one's really looking over my shoulder to make sure I actually do something with my time, I think I ended up working actually harder than I would have otherwise. And working on things I was actually excited about working on, as opposed to, oh no, I have to do this now. I mean, with anything, there's a certain amount of that you just have to do. Grind away on things that aren't too fun.
All
But
life has its dentistry. That's just life, right?
oh yeah, for sure. But I could focus on things that I was excited about, things that I was passionate about, and I didn't need someone prodding me in order to feel motivated and excited to begin to work on them. It's like, oh, I get to work on this today. All right, and then hours go by, and I look at at the end of those hours, I have something cool to show for it, something that I'm happy with to show for it, and yeah, just getting that process of self motivation. And it's something that I certainly wasn't used to, and it takes some getting used to if you've grown up in the culture that most of us have. Um,
Public schools and stuff, right? Yeah.